Hi, friends. Welcome to my talk, Death by Design. Learn about basic automation test design. My name is Priyanka Haldar, and I am excited to talk in Test Automation Guild 2023. Let's get started. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about me, why automation fail. We want to learn basic automation architecture, some best practices. I'm going to map a real scenario with the basic architecture. Then we're going to talk about tool selection when you're learning automation, and then strategy to win. And at the end, I'm going to share some key resources that going to put you on this path. So something about me, I'm into quality engineering leadership last 15 plus years. I'm an entrepreneur and a mom. Entrepreneur in the sense I have my own company called the Lean Starter LLC. What I do is I help series A and B company who are smaller with small budget. I consult with them and I design their quality engineering practices, their automation suite, and also help them work within their budget to get best ROI and match them with offshore partners. I'm also mom of two beautiful girls, Arya and Adrika, 7 and almost 2 years old. Um, Pretty automation enthusiastic, and you will hear me talk about automation testing, visual validation, strategies, leadership in a lot of conferences. So this talk is specifically designed for the people who are walking into the test automation arena from a manual testing background. So these are the three main key points I could jot down from my last 15 years experience. So when people move from the manual mindset to automation, their test automation usually fail because 33% of them does not understand basic building blocks. What they do is they just pick up one tool like Selenium, Playwright, Cypress, and go through courses that just tells you how that tool works, but they do not have any information how to write a good test, and that should be agnostic of any tool, right? There are some basics that we're going to learn today. 60% does not have automation mindset. Again, when we come from creating great detailed test cases and going through a lot of manual testing, which is like step and validation, it's hard for us to know the design, right? How you gonna isolate the test, how you gonna have one intent. So 60% of them fail in that, and 80% does not care about test performance. What I mean by that is like their tests are super lengthy, it's super fragile, it does not perform, and it's not reliable at all, right? So these are the key points why automation fails. Let's talk about, so during my last couple of leadership role, I had to write vision and mission for my team continuously. So I wanted to give you guys a background, like what is automation test engineering. I have seen lot of leadership, automation test engineering is very hyped. They think that okay, we will have a automation tester in our agile group, and then when developer develops, the automation test engineer automates, and we gonna just automate everything. So there will be no manual test, no exploratory test, no test case writing, no exploding of bugs. Everything could be automated and found through automation. That's not the case. Automation test engineering is efficiently testing your critical flows, and here the critical flows is very important because you're not going to create thousands and thousands of automation tests. That's a overhead for you. So your vision should be enable your engineering and product team to test critical flows easily and efficiently so that they can move at a faster rate and with a lot of confidence that they are not breaking anything that make the company money, right? And mission should be again prevent company to lose any sort of money because of critical bugs, right? And prevent customer satisfaction to degrade, right? So that should be your two very big missions. And your automation test always has to be reliable, efficient, cost effective, and scalable and maintainable, right? So this should be your idea what automation engineering is. It's not automating what you do manually, it's not automating all 100% test cases. So let's talk about what is automation test mindset. So again, going back, you will heard this critical flow throughout my presentation because it's very important. So you have to learn to play with data analytics, right? So when you join a company, you have to understand, or join a project, you have to understand what are the critical flows. So you have to map it down P1, P2, P3 test cases, right? And you will make sure all P0, P1 test cases could be automated when the environment stabilizes. So critical flows are very important. The next topic is blockers. So when you start your automation engineering effort, you have to understand what are the fire hoop you want to jump, right? Do you have a application which does not have a data ID? Do you have an application whose performance is really bad? Do you have an application which makes it super difficult to authenticate? You have to do some kind of discovery to make sure what are your blockers look like for a very solid automation, and how you will do the road mapping so that those blockers are solved. So for example, in my previous companies, like I have joined hands with developers and we have created dedicated IDs so that our locator strategy becomes super simple, and we do not have to learn complicated way of creating locators. We do not have to use any sort of locator applications, and that helped us having a robust test really heavily, right? Next one is in your test automation, you have to understand that you will learn that test again and again in some sort of pipeline or even ad hocly in a schedule, right? And you will not be present when the test is running. So it has to be robust enough that it can run by itself without any manual intervention. And I have seen again and again that mindset is missing. So for example, if your banking application supports Spanish and English together, if you are testing that, you go to settings and you change it to Spanish, the website becomes Spanish. You have to make sure end of the test, when you do tear down, you put it back to English, because next time when you try to go and change it to Spanish, it's already on Spanish and it will not be able to run the test. So repeatability is very, very important. And next one is solid and non-flaky. So again, like, you should not be creating a test such a way that the developer or the testers, they cannot get reliability from it. It fails because, okay, the locator change. It fails because the button moved up. It fails because the button classes change. So all these are very valid practical points, and you have to make sure you learn all the hooks and nooks to make your test case solid. So automation mindset is very, very important. So what not to do in automation, right? What should you consider while designing your test? Again, fragile test, don't automate a flow that needs manual reset. Static validation, complete no. Unless until it's like required by regulation. For example, I work in healthcare and we have to make sure certain clauses or conditions are present on the website, so we specifically go and do that static validation there. But my suggestion is, just validate if the element is visible, and then choose some kind of visual validation tool which is super easy to update whenever the text changes, right? Do not get married to the text of the element and directly start validating the text. It makes your text test super flaky locator. It's not enough to use those kind of like locator apps that we get in our Chrome browsers. It does not give you very robust apps. So either you have to really learn, and it's an art to learn the locator strategy, right? You have to learn how to write the locator that it will not break for 1,000 cases, or you have to work with your development team so that they create IDs for each applications, and the locators will not be super flaky. And then single intent, being it any layer of testing, being it unit, integration, API, or UI test, you have to make sure you have only one intent for one scenario. So for example, when we manually test a page, again, let's take an example of this time Amazon.com, right? When we go, what we do is we go, we log in, we search for a product, we buy that product. Maybe we check the reviews, we buy a product, we add our address. We are doing so many things. This is an end-to-end test, right? But you have to make sure that you are breaking it into smaller tests, right? So your test, one test should be just for login. Your next test should be only for searching product, and when you're doing the searching for product, your login should go into the pre-hook, and you should use some kinds of API or some kind of way to pass it in the cookie, so that you are not testing login on UI, right? And when you are searching for it, make sure you're just ending the test, your search for a product, you're finding the product. Do not test anything like, does the review work, does the left hand navigator work, does the footer work. All should be different test cases, and I have seen this mindset is not there in most of the new folks who are moving into automation. So let's do a SWOT analysis. It's very important when we start into a new journey, we analyze what are our strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats are. So as a manual tester, I think the biggest strengths are they are excellent in writing test cases, right? You give them any requirement and they can write positive, negative, corner cases super well. They're very detailed oriented, they're very analytical, and they are good at repetitive work. Weaknesses, they cannot find a path to move to automation because find it difficult to learn a new language, because if they start with a very difficult framework, not difficult but a framework that requires knowledge of coding, so now you have two things to do, learn coding plus learn automation, right? So I feel like their weaknesses is finding the strategy, finding the resources that gonna make put you on a path that will be interesting enough for them that they will not lack motivation. Opportunities, this is a very needed skill today. Any job description you pick up, even in the reality, if they're gonna do you exploratory test, make you do exploratory testing, they're gonna have a skill set of automation. So there is opportunity. If you learn it, you're gonna prosper in your long term career a lot, right? Threats, too many tool to select, too many confusing courses, and changing trends. Like every year we see two new tools coming up. There are too many courses of learning those tools, but again there are very few hand-picked courses that actually taught you the basic building blocks, right? So once you learn that, you need to map your goal, like how you will be success. You have to plan, you have to find correct resources, like how you will be practicing, and then you can conquer learning automation. So learn about the building blocks. Not enough to just automate how you test. It's not enough to go like pick up a Selenium Java framework from website and just do it somehow, either through a record playback or learn very shallow way like how to do it. Like I what I do for my engineering interview is I give a homework to all the people, right? And oftentimes I see that people have no in-depth knowledge to show me that they understand pledge object model, they understand other key things, right? So you have to be very solid at least one tool. So stick to one tool, practice it 6 to 12 months, so when you do this kind of interviews you can show in depth how much you know a good automation design using that tool. So it's not enough just using the tool and shallow way, like showing okay how the tool works, but how you put your hooks and nooks so that the tests are super solid. Pick the layer you want to master. So again, either it could be company need or your personal interest, or your past experience, right? If you have been a backend tester for very long, start with API testing. If you have been working on UI or an integration test, start with UI testing, right? But pick a layer and master it for 6 to 12 months and then move on to other one. Don't have too many things at once, and do not try to learn every layer within a year or within 6 months, right? That's gonna confuse you, so do not do that. So let's now the meaty topic, what's the basic building blocks look like. So in your mind you have to map that prep. You have couple of, so automation testing is not black and white, right? You have to do couple of things when you think about automation test. Okay, so let's again take an example of, let's just say login, right? So prep the framework. So you have to learn like how you will be initiating the drivers, how you will be initiating connecting to a particular environment, how you will be initiating sending the analytics that okay we are test, we are not real customers, right? So all this prep will be going into prep framework. Then you have to think about prepping test data. So when we talk about logging, lot of companies work with static data and use similar, but a very good way will be you register through API and you pick up the real time data and then you log in to make sure that the login works, right? So those kind of test preparation will go in your uh, preparation of test data section. Prep the scenario. So if you are doing positive, if you are doing negative, if you are doing corner cases, you will prep those scenarios. So you will have a login that works, you will have a login that doesn't work. So you're going to prep those scenario under the prep the scenario. Run the steps. Now, like put enter the login username password, that should go into your steps. Validation. You're gonna next validate. Once you enter the valid username and password, you are able and click login, you are able to land on a home page. That's your validation. And oftentimes I see people have no validation on their test, right? Next, cleanup. So once you are done with your test and validation, absolutely you have to do cleanup. For example, if it is a login test, you should be maybe cleaning it up and deleting that user, because you want to keep your database pretty clean, right? You do not want to create thousands of users. Say similarly, if it is like an on-off switch, so you have to make sure you are putting the test in the initial state where you want it to be starting, right? And then again, send analytics. So end of the test, you could use some tools like Datadog, Loki, and you can send a lot of information like how long the test took, like is it performing. So different kind of test analytics, so that you can map it on those kind of tool, and it will show you over time how long the same test work. Did it pass or fail? Like is it failing or passing in a particular time? So that's very important too. So I hope that this basic building blocks gonna open up your mind and you will start thinking like an automation engineer. So next topic is tool analysis. So I would suggest, if you are walking into automation, start with a record and playback. There are a lot of tools like TestIM, Catalan, Tosca, right? So for again, first learn the mindset, like how you will be automating, how the intent will be single, how you will be sending pre-hook, like how you will be working with pre-hook, post-hook, how you will be sending the test analysis analytics, how you will be prepping the data. All this need to be learned, and you can learn it with record and playback. Move on to something like Selenium, learn about page object model, learn about pick up a particular coding language like Python or JavaScript, right? Even TestNG if you want to go in Java, and then master the hooks, master the page object model, master lazy loading. So master all those small stuff. Then move on to the next steps, and try visual validation with Applitools. Try running in clouds with Browser Stack. Then move on to some newer categories with Cypress, which is completely different than Selenium, and that works with Node and JavaScript, right? But have this stage by stage approach, so that you are not trying to learn everything at once. So next we're going to talk about some of the best practices, and most of you will get this information over web, but it's very very important when you think about one layer, which is unit test. Your test needs to be simple, it needs to be deterministic, it needs to be scalable, manageable, and isolated. Like not one test should be dependent on other tests. API test, again, authentication and security is very important, because most likely you do your authentication, you transform very PII, PHI through API test. So make sure that you put an extra effort on authentication and security. Response data, response code. So if you're doing get or post or put, make sure you are validating your response data, that like for happy path and negative test, and also like make sure them it's matched with the codes, right? 200, 300, all those. Same with error codes like 500, 503, 501, 401. You have to make sure all the error code validation work. And last but not the least, the performance, absolutely important for API testing, because if your APIs are slow, your UI gonna be suffering for there. So these are very key points when you're designing API test. You make sure you touch through all those points. Next is integration or contract test layer. So again, it needs to be in a separate test suite, thoughtful test name, because it's not your pet project. So everybody needs to understand what kind of integration testing you are doing. Refrain from doing business logic testing in that, and understand what's the difference between unit test and integration test, so that you do not end up testing the business logic in your integration test. UI, I think you will get find lot of talk about UI, and I have already spoken up already a few times. Hooks for locators, run within a minute, scalable, manageable, and debuggable easily should be your key points when you're designing UI tests. Let's talk about the very much needed skill before and after hook, right? Setup and tear down. I think a lot of people does not understand this. I had a whole team who claimed to be estates in an offshore country, and then like they had no idea like how to write robot test their tests were in the beginning were exactly like the way they will do a manual test, right? So let's map it down a simple test case. So hioscar.com is my company website. What we will do is we'll go there, we'll launch the browser, we'll go to hioscar.com, and we're gonna validate the title, right? So launching the browser will go into your before test, then you will do the steps, right? The test steps that will go your test annotation, and then finally validating. After the validation is done, quitting browser will be on your after test. So like pick up example and try breaking that test logic and map it onto before after and test, so that you can learn the basics again pretty solidly. I have just put it an example of annotation in TestNG. I would highly recommend you that you learn about this just to get the design thinking, like how you can break down a test components in various pieces, and then you can map it like where what exactly should be under test and what should be before and after. Next one, so for you, the strategy will be master the automation design thinking, understand the basic building blocks, start with basic tool like BDD robot framework, learn page object model, and then learn optimization, test hooks, fuzzing, API integration, and shortening of flows, right? Again, like this was a very basic talk for the people who are just walking into automation testing, but if you want to learn advanced techniques, I have a specific talk with Test Guild on YouTube, and this is the QR code. Please go and watch that. It got very good feedback. So if you want to learn more advanced talk, happy to point you to that. And again, these are the resources that I have used in my lifetime. Automation University, absolutely awesome. Go and do the courses there. Follow the YouTube channel for Angie Jones, Kaushik Let Code, Automation Lab for by Navin. Learn your automation basics. I have given some links, and again, some of the blogs like Angie Jones, Tea Time Testers, Test Tribe, and Sticky Mind, one of my favorite. Thank you so much for listening to my talk today, and I hope this will put you to the path where you will be succeeding. Thank you.